See how our audio sounds once it pops up here. Check, 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 check.
Check, 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 check.
Nice. All right. Doing some driver work here. What are we mostly working on? More turn, right? More. Right, trying to keep the arms from over traveling, right? When I don't turn, swing gets really long this way. And trying to make sure we swing at a speed where we can accomplish that task and hit the center of the club face. It's like a 4 out of 10 on the balance, so not my favorite. But can it'll be good to be able to look back on these swings and a really nice weather day here today, so we got some outdoor practice in. Hitting off the grass tees. Now we're getting a little more work done in here after identifying some things on the video. Oops. It is going to make a whole mess if I start bouncing balls into here. 2, 4, 6. Eric said hi. Hey, Eric. Sending you hate from Spain. Very cool. Me gusta mucho España. Ya he pasado tiempo ahí hace unos 10 años. Para mí es difícil practicar, pero yo ya puedo hablar poquito de español. Adventure Brothers said, hey, hey, Adventure Brothers. Hey, happy birthday, Nick. Thanks for checking out the stream on your birthday, hanging out. Hope it's a good one. And you got a good friend shouting you out on your own birthday. So shout out to both of you guys. Definitely is a different feel than what I'm used to, right? Where it's more the arms traveling, right? Getting really long this way. Trying to give it more, just a little more shoulder turn. And that's kind of the balance position I want to end in. So that was better. That was better, making some progress. Trying to also just have it feel shorter generally, right? Like I don't need to be swinging it way back here. You know, not a whole bunch of good stuff's gonna happen. Gaurav Kumar said hi. Hey, bro. Probably hit a few more of these. And we'll put our platform back where it goes and hit some irons. You know, answer some questions, do some demos. Not the point of this live, but sick tattoos. Oh, thanks very much, Kaylee. That's very nice of you to say. It's a dangerous hobby / addiction, just like golf, right? I obviously look like this, as you guys can see. We're doing a live stream. I thought once in my life, when I got my first tattoo, I was like, this is the only one I'm going to get. I'm just going to have this one tattoo, you know, for the rest of my life. And I was wrong. You know, it's okay to be wrong about things. It's been a fun hobby, right? I've been able to get tattooed all over the world, all over the US. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Mostly in the golf world, I stick out just for having tattoos. It's not often that people are like, oh, those are actually pretty high quality and I won't say thought out because they certainly weren't, but certainly high quality. Having a little athletic, non-alcoholic beer tonight. It's the warm weather came all at once, so it's toasty outside today. That one felt pretty good. I might go back and watch that one. Who else is playing golf this weekend? Anybody? Still a little bit long for my liking, but better. Simple putting tip for a 25 handicap. Good question, DJ. So my simple tip is separate your putts into two categories. The first category is called approach putting, right? That's every putt that you hit on the green outside of 10 feet, right? It could be 10 and a half feet. It could be 68 feet, right? Those are all approach putts. Your goal on approach putts is to two putt. That's your only goal, right? You could have a 12-footer, you're stuck in there for birdie. Doesn't matter. Your goal is a two putt. Because, you know, racing it 4 feet by and then missing your next one, that's so much worse than just two putting, right? Group number 2, right, is that circle inside 10 feet. Those are the ones that you really want to take your time, you know, make sure you hit it the right speed, pick out a good line, you know, take your time reading the putt. Because those putts inside 10 feet, where you do one putt, though, that's where you really pick up positive strokes gained on your putting. It's been really helpful for me, and I'll share, this could be a good tip for anybody, to mentally remind myself when I'm out there, right, whether it's an approach putt or a putt we want to try to make, right, inside 10 feet. If I'm 12 feet from the hole, I'm just going to put the ball down with the white part facing up, right, or maybe the logo, something like that. But I'm not using the line on the ball. Right, and that for me is a reminder that, you know, something like 98% of my focus should be on the speed that I'm hitting the putt, right? Trying to get it as close to the hole, give myself the easiest next putt to try to guarantee a two putt, right? If I'm inside 10 feet, I will use the line on the ball, right? And I'll set it, on my intended line. And that's a reminder for me that, okay, start line is, it's probably still 60-40 speed, right? Because you can hit a 10-foot putt or a 9-foot putt 4 feet by, just the same. But the closer you get, right, the more strokes, the easier as a percentage that next putt's going to be anyway. So that's the strategy part that I think has been really helpful for me understanding, like, what's the actual objective here, right? If I have an 18-foot putt, just because you see guys on TV roll those in all the time, that doesn't matter. I mean, my goal is not to make that putt. My goal is to two-putt that, right? If I two-putt that putt, I'm thrilled. If it happens to go in, obviously that's better, right, to make it. But our objective is a two-putt. Still struggling keeping face square with the irons. Aiden, is it going left or right? Scratch just means your handicap is, like around 0 or better. You're welcome, DJ. Thanks for checking out the stream. If you guys are enjoying the stream like DJ, you want to like and subscribe, that's always very much appreciated. We're definitely going to keep doing more of these live streams, right? We tried to get into a habit of doing it every day, but haven't quite got there. But yeah, racing towards 2,000 subscribers now. Just, I don't know, 5 months since we started posting on YouTube, and we did just launch an Instagram channel. So go check us out on Instagram too. Get a little more like kind of day-to-day, like what I'm working on in my game type stuff. Instagram being a little more conducive to that sort of stuff. But yeah, again, just super grateful, guys, for all the support, all the nice messages, all the engagement, right? When you put something out there that's like, hey, what do you think? And people really comment on it, and, there's good discussion, and it's really a credit to you guys, right? I know that I, in some way, shape the audience too, but, it's about trying to build a community and a place where, you can come hang out, talk about golf, find something that's a little more positive than, the nightly news or whatever nonsense your boss is making you do, right? And just come hang out for a little bit, get a smile, maybe a laugh. Oh, just missed it. So, yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. Obviously, the traction makes it easier and more fun, but just trying to share the grind and what we're doing. Aiden needs help because he's going right with the irons. Unpolished says, love the ink. Thanks very much. What driver is this? This is the QI10 Max driver. It's a little bit shorter than the core model, about a ½ inch shorter. So it's almost like a mini driver, except the head is massive. And it's really beneficial on the, the heel and toe strikes, which is what I needed more. So I got this one. All right, so Aiden is hitting right with his irons. So he's having a hard time keeping the face square. So a couple of things I would check first, Aiden. I'm not going to hit it off this high tee, but I'll just grab an iron here. Right, make sure, number one, that when you're setting up, right, you've got your handle forward. Right, we can use this golf ball here. And I will get the mat back out so we can hit it off of there. Right, so say you've got your iron, right, you're set up to the ball. Handles forward at address, right? Then we make our grip, right? I want you to really feel like, the club is in your fingers. You can see at least 2, maybe 3 knuckles on this left hand, right? This V is pointed the outside of this shoulder. Trail hand's just kind of hanging along for the ride, but same sort of thing. You want that V here pointed at this right shoulder. So I want to make sure your grip is strong enough to keep that club face square, especially if you're hitting it right. So from there, right, if you're still having a hard time squaring the face and, the face is open, right, make sure it's not path. You don't want the ball launching right or, or launching left. But then from there, what I want you to do is just work on seeing the ball turn right to left, right? Really feel like you're releasing that club face on the way down, right? Make sure you have enough space. Make sure that takeaway is nice and wide out this way, right? You don't need the club in here close to you, right? Then you're going to get steep and all this kind of bad stuff, right? Nice wide takeaway. And then feel that club face turning over this way, right? So that you see that ball start to draw. I want you to learn to feel the club face, and what you have to do with your body, your hands, to produce. Least country club looking tats on the G. Yeah, I'll take that as a compliment. Very, very much a compliment. I've played golf at a couple different country clubs, and I never liked it, except for access to a really nice golf course, right? But it's not my kind of vibe, and that's part of the reason why I don't patronize a place like that anymore, and the fact that I'm moving. But here nor there. That's kind of tough off the really high tee. So Aiden, give that a try. Let me know how that works. Right, I want you to start building the skill of controlling your club face, right? Learning how to, on command, produce different face angles at impact, right? To turn that ball right to left or hold it left to right. My irons are a stiff shaft. My driver's a regular senior. Is that why when I try to swing hard, the ball's fading a whole lot more than normal? Well, definitely could be. I would recommend getting fit for your clubs if you're really interested in golf. But if you think your irons are appropriately fit for you and they're stiff, then I would recommend at least a driver shaft in that range, right? Floozy. Having troubles hitting 60-80% shots with my 56, so much that I'm going out of the way to hit a shot that leaves me 115 out. Any tips? My number one tip is that it's going to be tough, right? It's just, it's a hard thing to learn, and you've got to do a lot of reps. I spent a lot of time this winter on TrackMan, just renting time. I think we're done hitting drivers for now. I'm going to hit one more just because I still have this thought in my brain about the turn. And really, I just really want to feel like it's, like the backswing is shorter, right? Not getting quite so long. And I built out a wedge matrix, right? So on TrackMan, I hit, 5, 6, 7 shots with each of my wedges at each of the intervals that I have in my swing, right? For me, that's in, my language, my on the course thinking is half swing, 3/4 swing, and full swing, right? You hear, like, Bryson does a clock system. He knows what 10:30 feels like versus 11:30, right? So I have in my, the way that my swing and brain feels, puts that all together is half, 3/4, and full, right? And I hit all of my wedges with those swings, and I just learned how to produce like a pretty consistent, like when I say half, it means, my hands come about to my waist, right? 3/4 like about shoulder height, and then full is, somewhere just past that, right? It's more like 90% with a wedge, if we're being honest. Because I don't think, swinging a wedge at 100% is usually a good idea. These clubs are about accuracy. So anyway, you get on TrackMan, you get on the watch monitor, and you hit those shots, and you record the carry distances, right? So I know that my 56 with a half swing will go about 65 yards in the air, right? And I know that a half swing with my 52 goes about 80 yards, right? And I can produce those shots. So I know, like, if I have a 75-yard front pin and I want to make sure that I, carry it on the green, well, I can hit that half shot pretty consistently with a 52, right? And it should go, maybe 5 yards past the pin, right? I don't have to think, well, it's a, 68.2%, 60 degree, and I have to try to dial in, like, how does that feel compared to 80 or 85, right? And I just have those checkpoints, and I can cover every yardage from 50 to like 125 yards with those 3 clubs in those swings, right? Because if I have 3 shots with each club and I have 4 wedges, well, that's 12 different shots. Not just, the stock carry number that I hit with those clubs with a, a full swing, or, what to me feels like 90% with a wedge. Also working on trying to feel that pause at the top. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful for your wedge question. Should I always opt for the most forgiving irons if I'm in between? Yeah, I think so. That's what I did. I went from a blade to a CB. Cameron says, hey, I'm really good with my irons, can compress the ball really well, so I usually hit a 2-iron off the tee. My driver can go far, but rarely straight. I have high ball speed. What do you think? My guess is that you're probably... Is your miss with driver to the right or to the left? Like, are you overdrawing it or are you hitting big cuts? Flash says, how do you hit your driver? How do I hit it? Usually, I try to hit it far. But no, swing-wise, how do we swing the driver? Right, this is our longest club, so it's going to have the widest arc, can produce the most speed. Right, so the important thing with the driver is make sure you give yourself, because of that long arc, that long swing, you know, we've got this big heavy club head back there, you need to give yourself time, right? Time and space. You guys have heard me say this before. So we need to keep that club head away from us in the takeaway, right? Keep it out there. Keep the club head low is a good way to feel this, right? Feel like you're really extending, making as wide an arc as you can in the backswing, right? Because that's how you're going to push the energy from the ground up into that club in order to return it back into the ball. Right, so that's the basic idea. If you're just learning, if you're a beginner, you can practice this at slow speed and not even with a full swing, right? Because you want to learn the skill of hitting the center of the club face, hitting the ball somewhat straight towards your target, right? So you can just practice, right? Still making that wide kind of takeaway. Just some slow little swings like that, right? With not a ton of speed. But like that one I just hit there, you want to make sure you get that nice solid feeling out of the center of the club. And then you just start adding speed from there. Cameron says, goes right, I'm afraid of duck hooking. So my guess, Cameron, based on what you told me, I haven't seen your swing, obviously. But hey, Jackson's back. Yeah, of course I remember Jackson. Got a bunch of returning watchers in here today. I would guess that your swing is a little bit steep, right? And you can get away with it even up to a 2-iron, right? And hit that club really well off the tee. And you have enough speed to hit a long iron like that, right? Is what it sounds like. But if you're still a little steep with driver, you can, because we don't have the loft of even a 2-iron, right? It's going to be that much more penal if you are getting a little on top of it and steep this way, right? Hitting down on it a bunch. And that can make it tough to control the flight, control the face. So try to feel like if you are practicing driver, and it's totally fine. If you're in a tournament, you really got to get the ball in the hole, and you don't know where the driver's going, don't hit it. You know, hit a 3-wood, hit a 2-iron, hit something where you know you can play your next shot from. But if you're practicing, and once you start working on it, try to feel like you're coming in low to high with the driver, right? Trying to get that angle of attack more positive, right? And a little more shallow, so that when you're into impact, your hands aren't hitting the wall first. They're kind of getting there at the same time, right? You don't need to be de-lofting it and hitting down on it with the driver. But again, that's just based on your feedback. Twisted my trail knee on the range. Is that a common problem? I've not heard of that being a common injury in golf, but I've injured myself doing much sillier things than swinging a golf club, so it certainly can happen. Yeah, Cameron, hopefully that helps. Dobie says I top the ball too much. So if you're topping the ball, right, that means the low point is too far in front of the ball, right? Especially with an iron, we want some amount of moving the low point forward, right? Because that's how we hit the ball first, and then the turf, hit a nice divot, right? And, less so with driver, right? But we still, we need that low point not in front of the ball. So if that's happening too much, right, you're going to hit the top of the ball and hit it down into the turf, right? And what that usually is from too much leaning this way into impact, right? Because then your low point gets too far in front of the ball and you hit the top of it. So work on trying to you're going to feel like you're leaning back through impact, right? You got to trust your feel versus real and start hitting it up into the air, right? Really feel like that right shoulder staying down. You're launching the ball up into the air, right? Keeping that low point at a point where you're not going to hit the top of the ball. So hopefully that helps. I have trouble with long irons. Any tips? My best tip for the long irons, right, is really smooth it out. Give yourself plenty of time in transition to let that club set, right? We care a lot about making good contact with those long irons. So make a balanced, really focus on making a balanced, smooth swing, right? Keeping your chest right on top of that ball through impact. Here, let me set this up. Let me hit one more driver. I've said that like twice already, but oh, that was really out of the heel. I can't end on that one. But then I am going to set the platform back up so we can hit some iron shots into the net and demonstrate some stuff. See, I have to practice that too sometimes, right? Keeping my chest right on it, you know, not getting in front of it, right? I've been working on that so much, that weight transfer with my irons, that sometimes it can be hard to transition back to the driver, right? All right. Also, I think tomorrow, guys, we're going to have some time to get to the range and film what a lot of you have been asking for, which is an updated what's in the bag video. So we'll make a 15 or 20 minute video going through what clubs we've got, some of the changes, some of the thought process, behind the changes. Maybe taking the 4-iron out of my bag. Who knows? Any drills for beginners for ball contact? And if I miss your question, guys, please just ask it again. I'm trying to keep up with the chat as best I can. Is the iron shaft straight when you set up, or is there some lean? Definitely have some forward shaft lean. Dovey, if you have a hook, you got to learn how to hit a big cut, right? Learn how to control that club face. All right, so Gordalog asked, drills for beginners for contact. So I've got a great drill. I do this drill pretty regularly still. And this is the best drill you can do for your irons, for learning how to hit them solidly and make good contact, right? So, once you've learned kind of basic setup and grip, right? We've talked about that on here before. All you're going to do is grab an 8-iron. I have an 8-iron here in my hand. I was actually doing this drill on the live stream earlier today from the range. So normal setup, normal grip, everything, right? Like I said, there's a little bit of lean here. Handle slightly towards the target. And just take the club back to about your waist. Try to hit the ball maybe 50 yards in the air, right? But you're going to practice trying to really make nice contact, compress the ball. Boom, right? And just over and over again, when you're at the range, practice hitting these little shots with a short iron, right? An 8-iron, 9-iron. You don't need to hit it more than maybe 50 yards, right? And what you're learning is impact. The 2 feet before and after the ball are truly the most important parts of making good contact, right? Your swing can look like Jim Furyk. You can swing it like this out here, Matthew Wolff style, or you can swing it short and inside and like this, like John Rahm, right? But what they both have in common is when they get to impact, their hips are open to the target, the handle's forward, right? And they're in a pretty, stable, balanced position, right? Their impact positions look pretty similar, right? There are some core things that we need, and that's what you're going to practice with this drill, right? Just, boom, making sure that your ball is flying up into the air towards your target on a pretty straight trajectory, and that you're making nice contact with the back of the ball. So hopefully that helps. When you say compress the ball, could you explain this feeling? Yeah, so what I mean by that, right, is imagine you were hammering a nail into a wall, right? And you're releasing the head of that hammer into the nail, right? And you're getting that energy into it, you're driving it into the wall or the wood, whatever it is, right? When we talk about compression, that's kind of what we're trying to feel, right? We're trying to feel like we're hitting down onto this ball and feeling it, almost compress into the turf is what it will feel like, right? Because we want to hit that ball first and then the turf. We always want a descending angle into impact, right? And once you start doing it and you'll learn, like, oh, I didn't do it that time because it felt, thin and like out of the bottom of the club. It didn't feel right. But then once you start doing this drill and making those small swings, and then you hit one nicely, you'll be like, oh, that's what it feels like. That's what the compression feels like. And the more you practice, the more you will learn to identify that feeling. You'll learn to feel, in your hands, like, oh, did I strike that one out of the toe or out of the heel, right? It's just about reps at some point. But learn impact and start there. If you have problems with long irons, you should try more head covers. I'm also doing that. I'm taking my 4-iron out. I've got this new 7-wood, guys. You guys have seen on the channel recently. Very cool club. 21 degrees. I might get a 9-wood at this point after seeing how easy to hit this thing is. I just hit it, 225, 230, straight up in the air. It would stop on any green in the world. We've got this 70-gram X-Flex shaft in it from Mitsubishi. Heavenwood, yeah, exactly. Aiden said hi. Hey, Aiden. Chase is back from yesterday. Welcome back. Hopefully you guys have all subscribed and liked the stream. What wedges are mandatory to put in my bag? So, again, it's not so much about what's mandatory compared to, like, well, what's our objective? Our objective is to cover, a decent amount of yardage, right? Whether that's like 80 to 125 or, 60 to 100, depending on your speed. It could be 100 to 150, right? But, when you get closer to the green, you want more clubs, right? To be able to hit them precise distances. BRD, cool tat, super helpful tips. Big fan, you got to subscribe from me. That's awesome. Thank you very much. BRD leading the way. So, in terms of what you need to have, again, think about generally, right, how far you hit the ball, what yardages you're trying to cover. Typically, we talk about wedges in, between 4 and 6 degree increments because that's the, the kind of yardage gaps we're trying to cover, right? So my wedges currently, I have 60, 56, 52, and my pitching wedge is 47. And that covers everything from 145 to like 90 yards with a full swing, right? And then like I was saying earlier, we have a wedge matrix. We have shots that we hit, they're in between that those yardages. Tam subscribed as well. Thanks very much, Tam. Dovey says, help, I have a hook. Sorry, guys, if I missed your question, but I appreciate you following up. So Dovey, if you've got a hook, like I said, you've got to learn how to hit a big fade, right? And your hook is caused by the face being too closed, too much pointed this way, and your approach too from the inside, right? So when you get to impact with your square club face, like this, it's pointing to the left and swinging out to the right, we're going to produce this big hook, right? So you need to neutralize both of those things. We need the face pointed more down the target line, and we need our path more down our target line, right? So when you get to impact, you want to see that ball launching pretty straight towards where you're aimed and flying pretty straight, right? So the quickest way, right, to start teaching yourself these skills is get on the range, and if you hit some and you're still hitting a big hook, right, learn how to hit a big, big slice. Like, what do you have to do in your swing to produce the complete opposite, right? And that's how you really start to maneuver and teaching yourself these feels, right? How you control the club face in your swing. and give yourself a task as opposed to saying, well, just, open the club face more and swing it more to the left. Well, that can be really hard to do, right? But if you get up here and you say, I'm going to aim to center field, but I'm going to force myself to hit it down the right field line, right? Like slice it around the right field foul pole and just make a swing where you really hold the face off, you get your path shifting, right? And teach yourself to control your path and club face combination such that when you want to try to hit it straight, you feel like you can do that and hit the center of the face. Been trying to flight my wedges, but I'm getting some shanks only with the wedges, though. Any advice? So, Quad, let's break down what's actually happening, right? So you're saying when I try to fight the wedges, I'm getting a strike pattern that moves too close to the heel. Your strike pattern might be towards the heel anyway, right? Everybody has a tendency. We're all aiming for the center, but you miss, some amount on the heel and some amount on the toe side. And generally, people with a somewhat consistent swing also, their bias is towards one way or the other, right? Lately, I've been hitting more on the toe than the heel, which is, not the best, but we're working on it. So what you're telling me is when I try to flight it, right, you're, de-lofting the club more, you're maybe getting your handle more forward, right? Whatever it is you're doing to try to flight it, you're saying my strike pattern gets too close to the heel such that I actually shank it sometimes. I'm hitting it off the hosel, right? So what I would tell you is, again, give yourself a task orientation and get up on the driving range and say, okay, I'm going to flight this wedge, but I'm also going to hit it out of the toe. Try to do everything else you were doing, right? Lean the handle, stack your weight, right? Whatever it is you were doing to try to de-loft it and lower the flight, right? But also be like, we got to hit it, 10 times in a row straight out of the toe, right? And just try to replicate those conditions in order to successfully move your strike pattern around the face, right? And that will teach you like, oh, maybe I was getting a little steep and coming across and then hanging on to it, and that was exposing the hosel, right? Or whatever it is. And then you've learned how to, move your strike around the face. That's really the skill that we're talking about. 160 to 200, no good for me. That's a hard yardage, right? You just got to practice. And at some level, speed is not going to, if you don't have enough speed to hit like a, 8 to 5 iron that's going to cover that distance, maybe try some longer woods, right? The 7 wood or the 9 wood can be great options. I just put a 7 wood in my bag. Tori says, favorite club? It's got to be the driver. I love hitting driver. I love hitting it just as hard as I possibly can. I'm trying to do that less, to be honest, though. I'm trying to make much more balanced driver swings on the golf course. Keep the ball in play a little more, because it's fun to hit it like 320 when it goes straight, but when you block it into a hazard on the right, that's not so much fun. So driver's my favorite club. It should be putter. If you want to really play good golf, make your putter your favorite club. ST Hawk said hi. It said it's easy. Henry Bart said hi. Welcome back to the stream, Henry Bart. What do you look for with your chip shots? My goal with a chip shot is always to play my next shot from the green, right? Whether it's 30 feet away or 2 inches away. No double chips. Don't leave it in the bunker. That is really the goal. Jackson says, you missed my question. Oh, I'm sorry, Jackson. Like I said, there's been a bunch of activity in here, which is awesome. So sorry if I missed it. How to hit really short chips from like 15 yards from the hole. Oh, that's a great question, Jackson. I'm sorry I missed it. So, again, your best friend here is just reps and practice. So grab a dozen balls, 20 balls, 100 balls, right? However many you got. I've got a whole shag bucket out in the trunk, right? And I'll just drop them down in the rough somewhere around a chipping green that I can practice at. Right? Most public golf courses have this. Try to find a time when it's quiet. You're not going to bother people. But drop a whole bunch of balls down around the distance you want to practice and just start developing a shot where you feel like you can consistently, from that distance, land your ball in a spot, where it gets out of the rough, out of the bunker, and onto the green. Right? You might hit it too hard. You might hit it too soft sometimes. But contact-wise, you can't be... if you really want to lower your scores, right, the one where you really duff it and it goes a foot in front of you, or the one where you scull it across the green and then you're chipping again, or those are the ones that you've got to, get enough practice time to get out of your game, right? So you feel like no matter what happens, right, I'm pretty much never, of course, crazy things happen, pros hit bad shots, right? But you want to feel like 10 out of 10 times you've developed a shot where you can step in there, right, and feel really confident that you can get that ball onto the green. It can be 30 feet away, but you have to hit your next shot from the green. And then once you develop that, then you start practicing with different clubs, hitting different flights and trajectories, right? My approach is more hit different shots with one club, so I'm always reaching for my 60 degree around the green. Yeah, you're welcome, Jackson. Sorry I missed your question, and thanks so much for all your support. Jackson's been a long-time supporter of the channel, coming back for many, many streams, commenting, liking the posts, all that good stuff, so thank you, Jackson. Paul said hi. Hey, Paul. BRD says, I have down to 6, then moved to hybrids and woods. I assume it's preference and what works, but any issues you see there? I haven't done a review on gapping. Make sure the mix in my bag is right. So I would definitely do that, right? You want to make sure that you know how far those clubs are going and that your gaps are appropriate. But I will tell you that in 2023, I played some of the best golf of my life so far. You know, was competing for a club championship that I lost on 18, right? I lost one up on 18 in the finals of our club championship, for the top flight. So I was playing some really good golf, and at the time, my longest iron was also a 6. I had a 5 hybrid and a 4 hybrid, and then 5-3 driver, 5-wood, 3-wood driver. And the only times I missed having like a 4 or 5 iron was occasionally if I was trying to hit a super low shot, right, that I was trying to punch it under some trees, but also fly it, 100 yards in the air or something, right, to try and cover like a fairway or, some rough to get it back to a fairway. But that's a pretty rare shot. So that's the only time I missed a BRD. And like I said earlier, I'm definitely considering just taking out even the 4 and maybe the 5 iron again and getting a 9-wood, right? I've had so much fun hitting this new 7-wood that just goes like 225 on a straight line every single time. Like, I don't know, I took the 2 iron out immediately. The 4 iron's probably next. I might just hit everything outside, from, inside of like 200 to 270 with a wood. Like, who needs a 4 or 5 iron? This is way more fun. This is so much easier to hit compared to, even this new CB model that I have, right? And I know I could probably get a 4 iron that's even more forgiving than this, right? But I might just skip all that and just go right to the woods. Just try to play like a 60-year-old, but at, higher swing speed. Right? I mean, this thing's just fun to hit. Yeah, so loft is your friend, guys. Loft is definitely your friend. Especially at slower speeds, right? If you're still getting started, you're still building up your club head speed, that is a skill in golf in and of itself. Swinging fast. I couldn't make the other ones because I didn't know what time you went live. I know I should do a better job of scheduling them so that people know when they're coming, but I just usually am trying to do so many different things that I'm like, oh, it's time. I gotta turn it on. So Eric said he's topping the ball a bit, and then I see Woody's question. E-Man says, hi, it's Evan. What's up, E-Man? From last time, you gave me a shout out. I'm doing good. What's up, Evan? Shout out to Evan. He's coming back for another stream. Another happy returning customer, you could call them, right? That's, the best thing in the world is when somebody says, hey, I heard what you were talking about, or I watched your stream, and I decided I want to come back for some more. That's awesome, right? It's like if you cook for your family, or I cook for my wife, and sometimes without even saying anything, she'll just get up and just go for more. Just go get seconds. You're like, man, I nailed it tonight. So I appreciate that, Evan. Shout out to Evan coming back for another stream. Okay, so Eric, I want to answer your question about topping it, right? If you're topping the ball, that means the low point is moved too far in front of the ball, right? We want the low point to move forward some so that we can hit down on it and compress the ball, right? But if your low point starts getting too far in front, you're going to swing over the ball and hit the top of it, right? So what's usually happening is you start leaning, getting, swaying towards the target too much, right? That low point's getting really far in front of the ball, right? So to fix that, it's going to feel to you like you're staying kind of back or behind it, right? But what you want to feel is like your head and your chest stay pretty centered throughout the swing on that golf ball, right? So almost like my sternum, I'm turning, right? But, in your mind, feel like the center of your body and your head are staying right there. And then same thing on the downswing, right? So you're just rotating around your spine, and that's your swing, right? You don't go this way, your hips don't start moving towards the target, right? If anything, we're just turning, and this hip gets going behind us, right? So it'll feel to you like you're hanging back on it, right? But you could try to feel almost like you're hitting an inch behind it, right? Really practice, where that low point is, almost like you were hitting a bunker shot, right? And just try to get that low point to where you're hitting the back of the ball solidly and compressing that ball. E-Man says, I subbed. Thank you very much, E-Man. Woody says, I hit all my clubs so high, the wind beats me up. Any tips? So my first tip is learn how to take more club and make a smaller swing, right? That will definitely bring the flight down. So if you're playing in high wind, definitely learn how to, say you had a 7-iron distance, but you're into a heavy wind, you might have to hit 5 or 4-iron, right? And make a 60% swing to take the spin off, to take the flight down. So just learn hitting some, practice hitting some of those, longer clubs but smaller swings. And you could also just practice, right? Getting your hands more forward, de-lofting the club some. Give yourself some drills on the range, like hit some if they're still going too high for you. Then say, okay, I gotta bring the flight down. I can want to maintain my contact, but I have to hit it lower than those last ones that just came out, right? Ebenezer says, approach shots are short, probably 70% of the time. Bad contact. I think so. You could try just, clubbing up more, but if it's so consistent, then it's probably just not a good strike. Tripadoodle says, what's a good way to keep your head down when you swing? Because I keep topping my iron. So I would not personally just tell you to keep your head down, right? Because I think that can cause some not so good things to happen in your swing. I just don't love sharing that as a feel. Because our head does move some, right? In the backswing, it stays very still, but then it comes down and then back up as we, generate speed in the downswing, right? So trying to keep your head perfectly still isn't super helpful necessarily, but if you're topping it, we were just talking about this before you asked that question, but let's understand that when you're topping it, right, the low point has gotten too far forward, right? We need the low point to move some from here to, maybe here, right, so that we can nicely hit the ball first and then the turf. We always want to hit the ball and then make a divot, right? But if you're topping it, your low point has gotten too far forward, right? You're probably leaning, getting towards the target like this in your downswing, right? So it's going to feel to you like you're almost like leaning back on it, right? But try to feel like your head and your chest, right, and everything is very stable on the ball such that when you swing, you just turn here and here. There's no movement this way or this way. And make some smaller swings, right? You can practice doing this at slower speed. You don't have to make a big full swing, right? And just get an 8-iron or a 9-iron and make some little swings where you just are nice and stable, right? And trying to make sure that you deliver that club onto the back of the ball, right? You're welcome, Woody. When it's breezy, swing easy. That's exactly right, Garrett. I use Mo Norman's single plane swing. We do a live stream on Saturdays. I'm wondering if you'd be interested in doing a multi-stream. Sure. That sounds interesting. I don't know anything about how you do a multi-stream or how that works, but yeah, let's do it. Why not? Send me an email, Chase, or actually you can message me on Instagram now because we have an Instagram. People have been asking about that for a while, so I finally was like, you know what? I'm doing it. We're going to do the multi-platform thing. So we do have a new Instagram you guys can go check out. So yeah, send me a message on there, or I think my email is on the YouTube as well if you want to find a way to coordinate that. Or actually, if you could, or you can drop it in here too. Tell me more about what a multi-stream is. Like, what does that look like? How do we do that logistically? Got it. Yeah, and then once you start compressing like that, it gets really, really addictive. Jackson says, I suck at my woods. Can you tell me a way I can hit better? Because I'm not good. So Jackson, with the woods, right, again, same concepts apply. You need to slow the swing down, make it smaller until you can really start to feel the, nice center face contact and see your ball fly down the range in a nice straight line, right? It's not sexy or fun or, I think it's fun practicing, right? But, you can I'll grab a 3-wood, right? And watch the swing I'm going to make. Right? I'm just going to make a nice, easy swing like that, right? But do you hear that sound when it comes out of the center of the club like that? That's what you want it to hear and feel. And, train yourself to build those skills, to improve your impact condition so that when you make those smaller swings, you're able to get the ball up in the air. It's flying down the range. And then you start adding speed, right? Don't try to work on your swing while you're making a big, long swing with a ton of speed. Garrett says, shot 72, even par at my home club. That's awesome. That's a great round. Missed a couple lip outs, too. Wow, that's great. That's, your game's in a good spot when you can post a number in the low 70s and be like, oh, I left a few out there. Right? I've had some rounds like that where you're like, man, I made 7 birdies today and I only shot 70 or 71. Like, man, that could have really been a good one had I not left a few out there. But it's so funny, right? If I just told you a story about how I once, posted a great round, but I'm like, oh, it could have been better. I'm sure in that round, like I maybe chipped in, I hold some long putts, right? If you make 7 birdies, you got to hit some really good shots, right? And the whole point of the story isn't like, wow, what a great round I shot. It's, man, it could have been better, right? And I just think it's so interesting that so many of us golfers are like that, right? We're always so critical of ourselves and our games, often to our detriment, I think. I think, if you hit a 7-iron from 150 on the green, and it's 25, 30, 35 feet from the hole, that's an awesome shot. You should be really proud of hitting a good golf shot like that, right? And I see a bunch of, I'll play golf with people who are like 10 or 12 handicaps. They're like, oh, man, I could have hit that closer. It's like, no, dude, that's an amazing, like for your skill level, that's a really, really good shot. You should be really proud of hitting that shot on the green from there, right? So Jackson, yeah, just hit some like this. Just some really nice little smoothie ones. Does remind me why I don't love... I'm going to put the 3-wood back in the bag, pretty sure, and take the 4-iron out. But I'm just never going to hit it off the deck. I'm only hitting 5-woods and 7-woods off the deck. One of us starts a stream and invites the other into it. It's actually super simple to set up. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, send me a note or a message, and we can find a time to get it set up. I don't know what I have on Saturday. I don't know. We'll figure it out. That sounds really cool. Well, I appreciate you reaching out. It sounds cool. I'll check out your channel too, Chasing Golf. Cosmic Wisdom. Who has your favorite golf swing? I think right now it's probably Ludwig. I just love how like simple and efficient his swing is. I love Jake Knapp's swing too, just because it's beautiful to watch. It just, the amount of speed he generates for how little effort it appears he's putting into his swing is incredible to me. Like, I can't even get within, 15 miles an hour of clubhead speed of that guy. And when I do it, it's like, a Herculean effort. And you can tell on video, you're like, man, he really looks like he's trying to swing hard. And then you watch Jake Knapp just go, oh, no big deal. We're just going to swing it back and through and boom. And you're like, yeah, 133 clubhead speed. Like, come on, dude. So I love his golf swing, just, you know, for how much speed he can generate. I didn't love the live move, but I've always liked John Rahm's swing just because it's weird, and I like guys with weird swings. I mean, weird's the wrong word. He has an incredible golf swing. Unorthodox, right? Non-traditional. But to like have a move like that and then see the quality of golf shots that he's able to hit, I think is super cool. Those are the ones that come to mind. It's hard not to like Scotty's swing just because of how effective it is, but I don't actually really love watching it. But I mean, clearly he's got an incredible control of where the club face is at all times, so there's something there. Okay, let me catch up here. Sorry if I missed anybody's question. You know, just trying to keep up on the stream here. Drop it again if I did miss it. Thanks a lot, dude. You helped so much, people. That was the last question I'm going to ask. Oh, don't worry about that. Thanks for asking your question, Jackson. Very cool. Tay-Tay said hi. Hey. I agree with that assessment. Michael says, can you help me fix not shallowing the club well on the downswing leading to a top/slice? When I work on it, I feel like I'm chunking and leaning too fast on my left foot on the downswing. So my best, again, you guys are going to hear me say this a lot because it's just, I think, the most effective way. And Michael, are you doing this with all your clubs or driver? Let's just assume it's kind of all the clubs. Yeah, I agree with that. Chasing golf, we got to stick together. Fred Couples, another good one. All right, so Michael, with the irons, right, the steepness in your swing is probably, it almost always is, a result of your takeaway, right, getting too far this way, inside, right, close to our body, right, where, see how that club head is right there? I can almost reach out and touch it, right? If it gets inside this way, we want the opposite. We want our hands to stay in and that club head to stay out. We want to make a nice wide arc around the body, right? We need space and time for this club to get that energy into it and then back down into the ball, right? So practice making some swings where you really slow it down, right? I want you to grab like a 9-iron, try to hit it 50 yards, right? And you're just going to make some easy swings where you try to feel that space, right? You keeping that club out, and it comes down through the ball, right? Truly, you're trying to hit it 40, 50 yards. It doesn't have to go very far. You're just trying to work on, you know, delivering a nice, clean, crisp impact on the ball, right? Where you hit the ball first and then the turf, and your ball will fly, you know, pretty straight towards your target. I think that's really the best place to start, Michael. I'm completely new to golf, but my driver ball speed is around 170. Is that any good? It definitely is. Yeah, 170 is great. I think tour average is 174. Should I be playing a stiff shaft if my driver swing speed is around 110? Yeah, probably X even. Mason says, I watched your stream the other night. I really am liking that setting the impact position drill. I get great contact at half swings, but once we get longer, I start hitting fatter. Any ideas? Yeah, so I think what you're diagnosing, right, is when I add more speed to the swing, I don't do enough to shift my weight, right, to get the low point forward because you're hitting the ground first, right? So it would feel like, right, like, you know, because of the preset, you're getting your weight more back. But either way, right, you got to learn to, you know, you're telling me you can successfully do the drill at half speed, but when you add some speed, right, you got to work on getting that low point more forward in transition, right? And that will allow you to hit the back of the ball. Right? So use, you know, the result to try to diagnose, right, what's happening, right? If I'm hitting it fat, that means the low point's too far back. If I'm hitting it thin or topping it, low point's too far forward. Crispy says, I struggle with inside takeaway with a flat swing. I don't compensate too much to go over the top, but I have very inside-out pass, especially with driver and long irons. That makes sense, right? I've been there myself. I remember being so frustrated, being like, well, I know I'm not coming over the top. Like, what's the issue? And for me, it was just that the club was going this way to start, not this way, right? And it truly, in the last 6 months, I mean, I was a scratch golfer, played off a plus handicap for years with, with a really inside takeaway and a lot of just dumping it, extending and trying to time it up. And if you practice enough, you can play pretty good golf that way. But it's going to be very inconsistent. So with that in mind, I tried to learn, like, okay, let's just actually fix the swing once and for all. And the thing that clicked for me the most, right, was just the cans have to stay in so that the club can stay out, right? There's only, if you think about forces, there's always a reaction, right? So if you push down, the club goes up. If you pull it up, it goes this way, right? And just understanding, what are we trying to accomplish, which is swinging this club head in a wide arc, right, to create speed and energy and put that into the golf ball, right? So for me, I just practiced over and over and over again all winter, just in my bedroom. I wasn't even hitting balls. I just set up my camera, and I would just practice going like this. Boom. And just feeling like I'm keeping that club head out away from me to really try to train myself a new feel for the takeaway. And it just really gives you so much more space. It will feel, you'll be like, oh, wow, I really should have been doing this all along, right? Because it makes golf so much easier, right? When you have all that space, right? Compared to this, right? Let's say I make a nice, even if it's flat and it gets inside, right? And I'm like this, well, I have to really time up getting out of the way, right? Because there's no room here, right? This is where I have to swing. My body's kind of in the way, right? So you kind of extend the swing, get on your toes. You dump all the angle, right? And that's how you hit it. But it's all because there's no room there, right? Imagine if you saw like Mike Trout try to hit a home run, but he was swinging like this, like with his arms like really in, like he wouldn't generate any power, right? You watch them, they're all extended, wide arcs, right? Boom. Delivering a lot of power. So you need that space, right? When I give myself the space, look at this. Look at all this stuff. I can, do all kinds of stuff getting back to the ball from there. And it really makes it feel so much easier, right? You're just always right there on the ball. I will tell you too, you're going to have to work on, if you've been extending and moving into the ball, right? I had to work a lot on my left side mobility, right? Getting my hip to function properly, my ankles to have enough range of motion to really get into, a solid amount of hip rotation, right? I just stretched every day for 6 months. I went from like no motion in my hip to a whole bunch. Zach says another trad tack golfer. What's up, dude? What's up, Zach? Yeah, American traditional all the way. Although this is going to be Japanese traditional, the left leg. Michael said, thank you, you're welcome. Why does my club face open when I take the club back? So if your club face is opening on the way back, right? You're talking about this happening, the toe of the club kind of getting away from you, right? And opening this way. You can imagine if you were driving a car, opening it would feel like turning it to the right. Like that club is turning this way, right? If we're opening it, you want to feel the opposite almost like you're turning that wheel to the left, right? So your club face stays square to that arc, right? If your club face had eyeballs on it, imagine it had some googly eyes on your club face. You want to feel like that club face, those googly eyes, are watching the golf ball till about, club parallel, right? That's when we hinge and turn, right? But to keep that club face square, if you've been opening it, it's going to feel like you're turning the wheel the other way. Have that club face watch the ball for a lot longer, right? Because if you do that, you're showing the sky. Your googly eyes are looking up there, right? You want it looking at the golf ball. So give that a try. That should really help get that club face in a better spot for you. Hit driver 295 today, but never straight. Carson says, love the stream, by the way. Thanks for the info. You're welcome, Carson. If you guys are enjoying the stream like Carson, feel free to like and subscribe. We've experienced a tremendous amount of growth in our 5 months on YouTube, you know, coming towards 2,000 subscribers, right? I had no prior experience in, you know, filming myself golfing well, it's not true. You know, I took videos of the range, but, you know, in terms of playing golf or doing live streams, anything like this. So, it really was a career change that allowed me to have the time to do this and, you know, have more flexibility. And I'm super grateful to, you know, all the people that have helped me do that and, you know, all the support, you know, for doing YouTube and trying to make content. So thank you guys for all the support. I'm really, really appreciative. Huma said, tattoos are sick, bro. Thanks very much. I appreciate that. Wiki Waka said, there's plenty of times I get a good strike on the ball, and yet the trajectory is much lower than usual. Not a stinger flight, but I would call a mid-level flight. Can you explain this? Yeah, so if you're talking about varying flights coming out, right, but you're still hitting it solidly, what it sounds like to me, or what I would tell you based on that information without seeing, you know, these different shots, is it sounds like you're able to still, you know, deliver a good strike on the ball in terms of, you know, downward angle and hitting the center of the face, but you're maybe inconsistent in the amount of loft that you deliver at impact, right? So some swings, you might, you know, have like a, you know, some amount of forward shaft lean, and say your dynamic loft is, I'm making it up, but like 30, right? For a 7-iron or a 6-iron or something, right? And then with the same club, maybe the next one's 26, right? So with the same solid strike, right? But if you're presenting less loft, you will, you know, that ball will come out lower, right? And that's all we're doing when we're trying to hit knockdowns or stingers, right? Is keep, you know, de-loft that club so that it flies lower through the air. But if you're saying, hey, I'm not trying to do that, that's what it sounds like to me. Maybe is, you know, maybe it could be in your setup, right? Getting the handle really forward or not sometimes. That's my best guess, Wikiwaka. I'm a lefty, need some help with my irons. Driver, 4 or 5, all go straight, but my 7, 8, 9 all go left, like bad left. So if you're a lefty and it's going left, that means you're blocking it, right? And when you say it's going left, is it also slicing, like it's curving right to left as well? And is it starting over there? Makes perfect sense. Thank you. I'll watch that. Yeah, you're welcome. And one way, Wiki, you could do this, you know, work on this when you're practicing, right, is, you know, whatever club you're working on, 6-iron, 8-iron, you know, I usually go for like an 8-iron. And, you know, hit one that you like and see kind of where the trajectory is, right? Maybe it tops out, I don't know, you know, making up like at the top of the back of the range, right? Or a tree in the distance, or, you know, some sort of frame of reference that you can say, okay, that's about how high that one went, right? And try to say, okay, we're going to hit the next shot to the exact same trajectory. We're going to really focus on trying to, you know, deliver a consistent, because you're not concerned about strike, right? You've already told me it doesn't matter. I'm hitting it solidly anyway. So that's great. You're doing great there, right? So work on trying to match that trajectory, and that should help you. And then you'll gain some awareness, right? If you do hit one that really comes out, you might go, oh, I really just kind of got the handle forward. I was really leaning on it, and I flighted it kind of by accident. Well, you'll notice, like, okay, that's what the miss is, or the tendency that you have to work on. And then once you've identified it, you just try to find a feel or a way to replicate that trajectory that you're looking for. And say, maybe for you, it's, you know, really keeping your chest down and centered through the ball and not getting this way where you're standing on it, you know, like really trapping it and de-lofting it. But if you're hitting it good, that's, you know, that's great. That's more than half the battle. So once you start worrying about, you know, trajectory and flight. That's all easy. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so what I think is happening is, with the longer clubs, right, your swing is probably pretty shallow, and you're able to turn the, get the face closing appropriately, right? This is actually kind of the opposite of what most people experience, so take that for what it's worth. But with the shorter clubs, right, they get more upright. So if you are delivering, like a draw pattern, right, the more upright the club gets, the more you're going to create that draw, that big, turn type shot. So just be aware of that, right? That's just the physics of golf clubs. And, try to when you're practicing, hit that 8-iron, but learn how to hit a cut, right? Hit one where you hold the face off and you get the ball going the other way. That can be a really good way to develop that skill so that when you're out there trying to hit a nice straight one with your 9-iron, right, kind of that middle ground in your swing that you can dial in to hit a straight ball. What's best, blades or cavity backs? I myself changed from blades to cavity backs this year, right? These are my new Tacoma irons. So I think more forgiveness is better, personally. I started around 3 months ago. I'm a 12-13 handicap. Any tips for getting better? Well, I'll tell you, that's awesome, Travis. 12 is great. So if you want to get more consistent, right, it's about impact, with your irons and full swing at that point, right? If you're a 12, I'm sure, you can hit some 7-irons like really nicely and they go straight. But then some, you maybe hit it out of the toe and it only goes, 130 instead of 150. So those are the ones where you really start to, once you improve your consistency from, say, I don't know, 7 out of 10 times to 9.5 out of 10 times, that's how you're going to get your scores going lower, right? And then strategically, we know, based on, strokes gained analysis and Mark Brody and Scott Fawcett, all these guys who have done this research, right? The best way to lower your scores is fewer double bogeys and fewer 3-putts, right? Fewer 3-putts kind of also leads to fewer doubles, but doubles and others, those big numbers, are what separate golfers at every level, basically, right? It's not birdies, it's not pars, it's how often do you make a double bogey or a triple bogey, and because that's really what sends your scores going up. Wendy says, I'm a college golf player and I play P7 MBs. Just want to play easier golf. Yeah, I mean, the CB is going to be more forgiving, right? So imagine, the one that you strike like fractionally out of the toe, instead of losing 12% of its carry distance, it's going to lose 8%, right? Or 5%. That could be the difference between, landing it on the front of the green or pitching in a front bunker, right? It's not if you hit a cavity back iron and you hit it out of the center of the face, it's a forged club. There's no technology in it that's going to make it suddenly go further, right? That's why I don't love like a P790 or like the old like R9 irons I remember, or yeah, I had those. That have that like springy face. I hate that because occasionally you'll be like, why'd I hit a 6-iron that went 220, right? Like we care about distance control. And so again, if you hit it out of the center of the face, and if you're playing college golf and you're doing that probably pretty regularly, we're more just talking about around the edges, right? The 9-iron that you are really trying to flush to hit it in a front, to a front pin, and you hit it, a tiny bit out of the toe, and with a blade, it might not carry the green, but with a CB or something that's slightly more forgiving because of that perimeter weighting, could be more helpful. Thinking about getting the T250. Yeah, I think those look good. I've always liked the Titleist irons in that shape. DJ asks, Oilers or Panthers? I got to go Oilers because I would love to see McDavid win one. I think that guy's so cool to watch. Mike wants to play a match. Let's come play a match. I'm not sure what's going on with my drives. It was going great, but since I'm trying to get proper ball to foot placement, I'm fading it like crazy, putting the ball right inside my left foot. I'm a righty. So if you were hitting it good before and then moving the ball forward caused you to slice it, right? Remember, all of our clubs swing on an arc, right? And what the golf ball cares about is where the face is pointing and where the angle of the path into impact, right? So remember that if you move the ball up in your stance, right, you're going to impact the ball further in that arc. And because of how the arc works, right, the club, the face is going to be pointed more to the left, more this way, right? Whereas if it's, if you move the ball back, you're going to impact further back in the arc, right? The face is going to be pointed more to the right, this way, okay? So by moving the ball up in your stance, right, without making any other adjustments, what you've done is create a condition where the face and the club at impact now are pointed more to the left relative to your target. That's causing you to slice it. You just got a sub. Thanks for your knowledge. Oh, very cool. Thank you guys very much for subbing. If you haven't already subbed and you want to do that along with these guys, that's very much appreciated. Panthers taking it in 6. Yeah, I think you're probably right, Alex. The Panthers just seem really hard to play against. Like, they're just going to beat the ever-living you-know-what out of you. In a 7-game series, that typically is pretty effective, right? But I just, if I had to pick one, I'd rather see McDavid get one. Never really gets old, right? With this new swing, I just am so consistently hitting the center of the face. I know it's a flat lie off a mat, so obviously that, but that's what we've got to practice with, so we'll take it. What do you guys think? Should I get a 9 wood? 7 wood is just so fun. OKC in 5. What's your take on the best way to shape the ball? Do you change your foot line or do you change your swing path? I like to do it more with setup, right? If I really had to turn one or I really had to fade one, I would do it more with my setup than trying to feel like I'm doing much of anything different, with the path or my swing, right? I'm just trying to make the same swing pretty consistently. And you'll develop your own feels, right, when you work on ball striking. Pacers taking that in 6 or 7. I don't know, man. OKC looks really, really good, don't you think? I'd probably rather see the Pacers, just again, if I had to pick. Not that I have a dog in the fight. My Celtics had a tough finish, obviously. Nick, this is the Net Return Pro. Not the jumbo one, just the regular one. One last question is, you had a gap between 3-wood and 4-iron. What would you put in the bag? I was thinking hybrid. Yeah, hybrid or a 5-wood or 7-wood. Right? Something that's going to be, more forgiving, allow you to launch the ball up in the air, right? Have it, land soft on those long par 3s or approaches into par 5s. So yeah, that can, hybrid could be good. I struggle with the hybrids, right? Trying to have them not turn over too much. I am in Mass. Yeah, send me an email, Michael. Maybe we can make that happen. Jason said hi. Cody asked, what's your go-to drill for tempo? I got a great one for you. I just want to look at that last swing really quick. One of the cool parts about doing this, I can do kind of live. Yeah, that was so good and smooth. Great question, DJ. I'm going to come back to that. Find it. Oh, in the bio. The link in our YouTube bio. Go to the channel page and then click more, I think, and it should be in there. So, Cody, go-to drill for tempo, right? When we talk about tempo, we're talking about, you know, allowing the club enough time to transition from the downswing or from the backswing to the downswing, right? You know, I used to have terrible tempo, and it was all because I'd make a nice backswing, and I'd go, okay, time to swing, boom, rip the handle down, try to swing everything from the top, and then it's all kind of looking wonky, right? When you see somebody like a Jake Knapp or a Fred Couples where you're like, man, that just looks so smooth, right? And the reason that is because they really allow the club head to finish its arc, right, before they start moving the handle. So the best drill for this, Cody, is what's called freezers or the pause drill, right? So you'll make a backswing, and then you'll fully almost do like a double pump, right? Just kind of let the club hang out there, up at the top of your swing for a second. Like, have you ever seen Ben Cooper swing, like the pause king? That's the drill, right? You know, make a Hideki swing where you really just get it to the top, and then you hit it, right? And that's going to force you to better sequence everything so that when you make a swing at full speed, right? But you still have that feeling of like that syrupy, smooth transition. Well, that's what makes the swing look really smooth, right? It's giving the club enough time to make that change of direction, right? To get that energy down into the ball. That's what I've been working on, right? Like, I'm hitting every club, I don't know, 5, maybe even 10 yards shorter than I was last year. But I'm hitting it so much straighter and just trying to make these really, like, smooth, balanced swings. I mean, last year I was hitting 8-irons like 175, 176 yards. But occasionally I would just, like, rope hook one off the planet, and you're like, well, that's silly. Like, I should just, if I have enough speed, I can hit it 165. And just make a nice, like, really smooth swing. Whoa. So hopefully that helps, Cody. What swing speed? Was that for me or for somebody else, Billy? Oh, 98 to 110. Well, that's a big range. What's your process for risk assessment, laying up versus going for it? Okay, so this, I think, is less about like personal preference as it is about math, right? And the equation is something like, let's say we're talking about, you know, I'm in the fairway, I'm 250 yards from a par 5, right? And there's like some sort of trouble, right? There's a river, there's a big bunker, there's some sort of thing that I don't want to hit it into potentially, right? That's what you're talking about, you know, going for it versus laying up. But I want you to also remember, this question is not just about like second shots into par 5s. It could be, you know, if you're 100 yards from the hole on a par 4, but you have a terrible, terrible lie and you're like, I can't hit it over that creek in front of me. I've done this before in tournaments where I was like literally had a wedge, but I was like, I don't know if I can hit it over that thing. If it comes out really, really bad, it might go in there, and I just can't hit it there. So you pitch it back to the fairway, and then you hit it on the green and try to make a putt for a par, right? But that's all better than hitting it in that shot, or hitting it in that hazard, right? So DJ, I want you to think first, is there a hazard I could hit my ball into? And if the answer is yes, then you're probably not going for it, right? And by that I mean, if your landing area is not wide enough to cover your entire dispersion, right? So with a 3-wood, it might be 50 yards wide is your left-to-right dispersion. And if you only have 30 yards, right, where the green is before you know, there's trees and then a hazard or something, you're just not going for it because the math says, right, some amount of the time, your worst, you know, dispersion shot is going to be in that hazard, and we can't hit it in that hazard, right? So typically, that's the equation, and then you kind of work backwards from there, right? Okay, as I get closer, you know, as I hit a shorter club, my dispersion gets tighter, right? And presumably there's less trouble. So our objective is always to advance the ball as far as possible while avoiding that big trouble, right? The bunkers and the penalty areas or out of bounds, right? So that's like the process, right? That's our objective, how we should think about it. And then there is an element too of, you know, how are you hitting it that day, right? Some days you're like, man, you know, I'm going to hit, you know, a really good 3-wood because I've been striking it all day, and there's enough room up there, so I feel, you know, pretty good about making that decision. But mostly, it's, you know, our goal is to avoid hazards and to get the ball as close to the hole. I went 7-wood, then took so advanced, tried hybrids with less stiff shaft, made a huge difference. Oh, don't worry. Yo, hey Sebastian, welcome to the stream. How do people give lots of spin on super small chip, like a 20-foot chip? Great question. So if you think about what causes the ball to spin, right? It's friction with the club face. So the longer you can get the ball on the club face, the more spin you can produce, right? Well, what also causes spin is speed. So you need some amount of speed while not hitting the ball very far, right? And technique-wise, somebody who watched who does a great job of this is like Wesley Bryan. Great news is he's got a YouTube channel. You can check it out. If you're watching my stream, presumably you've heard of the Bryan brothers, George and Wes. But if not, they have a great YouTube channel. Go check them out. And Wes has this awesome technique, right, where with the face open, because again, opening the face allows the ball to be on it for longer, right, as we slide across it. Right, where he'll put a bunch of energy into the club, right at the start, and then he'll almost decelerate, right, into impact, because he's trying to impart as much spin as he can without hitting the ball very far. So it would look something like this. I'm obviously not going to do it to the same level as a Wesley Bryan, but, you know, he gets a lot of energy into it, and then he just allows, you know, the energy to come out of it. Right, and that allows you to produce a shot that comes out with a bunch of spin. Five Hammy said hi. Welcome to the stream. DJ said, I appreciate the candor. Yeah, of course. That's what you come here for. Do I need to open the club in your backswing like tour players, or is there a way to get around that? Well, I don't know if I agree with what you said about opening the club face, because I think like the swings that I like the most are the ones where the club face stays pretty square throughout the whole swing, right? Where there isn't a whole bunch of rotation opening or closing the face. But if I'm misunderstanding your question, then definitely try again. Jason Miller said hi. Hey, Jason. If you guys want to be in the top 1.5% of cool viewers, feel free to subscribe. Something like 98% of all the channel viewers are unsubscribed. So if you're in the top 2%, I appreciate you. I could probably hit one over the net from here. Oh, that was close. That's a bad idea. Anytime you find yourself saying, I could probably hit it over the net, I don't know if I need to do that. I don't know if I need to do that. You're welcome, Sebastian. Oh, and Sebastian's a new subscriber as well. Thank you very much, my dude. All right, yeah, I gotta stop that because these balls are gonna go everywhere if they start ricocheting around. Sounds like we're going to be doing some a multi-stream on Saturday potentially with another channel that was here in the chat earlier. So stay tuned to hear more about that. Got more videos, more shorts coming. Definitely more live streams, so oh, that wasn't our best. There we go. That was much better. Again, most of my issues come down to balance and tempo, right? When I get too quick from the top, start getting really out of sync and unbalanced, right? Just gotta really live right there. You know, not 97% balance, just 100%. Leave no doubt. I heard somebody recently in a video, they were talking about trying to feel like you're swinging a rope with a hammer on the end, right? And really trying to feel like you're just, the hands are really just holding the club, right? We're swinging that rope with our arms and our body. That's another nice feel for tempo, right, Cody? I think it was Cody asked that question about tempo, because if you imagine you had a rope, right, something, or probably even do it with like a towel, right? If you send it up and you were trying to really swing it fast at the bottom, you wouldn't swing it up and then go like this about here, right? Because then by the time it gets here, it's not really going anywhere. So you got to send it up and then snap it at the bottom, right? So it's, you got to really let it change direction. That's that. See, right, Matt? See the top of the towel? It's still moving long after my hand stops moving, right? I send it up, my hand's not moving, but that towel still needs time to change direction, right? A rope would obviously be better, but I don't have any rope laying around, guys. Sorry. Billy says, do you like... So I use 60 around the green for everything. You mentioned the need to reduce 3 putts on the green. What advice tips do you have for putting? So DJ, this is a great question. I've been working on this a ton myself, because if you guys have been watching the videos, you know that my putting has been holding me back from shooting lower scores, right? So what I've been working on, DJ, is strategically separating my putts into 2 categories, right? There's a circle inside of 10 feet where I'm really focused on making the putt, right? I'm maybe 50-50 on line and speed, right? I really take my time reading those, trying to have a great, line picked out to try and make those putts. And then I use the line on the ball for those, right? As a mental reminder to say, okay, I've got the ball lined up. This is a good opportunity to make a putt, right? And even if I hit it 20% of my total distance, right, then I still only have a 2-footer, right? Our goal always is 10%. So if I have a 30-foot putt, a 3-foot circle is my goal, right? 50-foot putt, 5-foot circle is a good outcome. So that's bucket number 1 is the inside 10 feet. And then everything outside of there, 10 feet out to 150 feet, right? Hopefully you don't have a lot of 150-foot putts, but everything outside 10 feet, I'm not using the line. And I'm thinking this is an approach putt. My goal, my single goal is 2 putting, right? I want to get this putt as close to the hole to give myself an easy tap-in second putt. And if it happens to go in, that's a huge bonus, right? But my objective is simply avoiding a 3-putt, right? And about 98% of my focus goes, once I have my line picked out, right? I still read the putt. I still, decide how it's going to break, right? But my 98% of my focus from there is on the speed of the putt and trying to roll it exactly that right distance, right? And what that means is some amount of my putts are going to be short of the hole, right? If you think about distributions, standard deviations, right? You have, very small tails and then everything kind of meets in the middle, right? We want that peak to be in line with the hole, right? Because if you've heard people say, well, you got to practice, getting it, past the hole, right? Give yourself a chance to make that. Well, all we're doing is shifting that deviation, right? Such that more of our putts are now outside of the range that we can comfortably 2-putt, right? Said another way, you can do that strategically. However, you have to understand that simply because of how math works, you're going to 3-putt more, right? By moving that deviation away from where the hole is. Sebastian says, never thought about that. Yeah, exactly, right? It's definitely a different approach. And it's been helping me, I think. Cannon's asks, I have my face wide open on the driver. The irons come out good, though, so that's great. If you got one of them figured out, that's always good. So if the face is open with the driver, right, you've got to get it more shut. What I want you to do, Cannons, don't even worry about where the face is, right? Give yourself a task, right? And what I'm going to ask you to do is next time you're on the range, you're practicing your driver, right? Your task is aim like you're hitting it down the fairway, right down the center, or, center field, if you were going to use a baseball analogy, right? But what I'm going to have you do, again, you're going to have your driver out. You're going to hit it into the left rough or force yourself to hit it down the left field line, to use my baseball analogy again, right? And give yourself a task and just watch what your body does, right? You're going to notice how much earlier you're releasing that club head, right? You're neutralizing the path to get that club face, closing more, right? And teach yourself how to control that club face. Because you know what your current swing feels like, and you get an open club face, right? So by learning how to control that club face, right? What do I have to do to produce a right to left ball flight, right? You want to start teaching yourself the skills of, how do I control that club face? How do I move my strike around the face? That sort of stuff. How hard do you hit your tee shots and drives for maximum accuracy and consistency? Great question, Kyle. I recently have been trying to feel like I'm about a 9 out of 10. Like, never getting quite to 100, but still, for a normal tee shot, it's like an 8.5 or a 9. Yeah, that was a great swing. I love watching that one again. Golf Factoid says, keep sternum rotating through contact. Yeah, that's a great thought. Yeah, it's just when it's nice and smooth like that, I'm going to hit it pretty solidly. Most of the time, it seems. Yeah, DJ, the 3-putting stuff it's so infuriating to me. I hate 3-putting more than anything in golf. So I tried the broomstick unsuccessfully for most of last year. I posted some hilariously high scores with that club in my bag. It's never good when you hit more than 10 greens in regulation and don't break 80. So the broomstick is not in the bag anymore. Ah. Do 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 do. Oh no. Pretty excited. I'm playing golf on Sunday with some good friends back at the club where we all used to be members at. So I've got plenty of incentive to keep practicing so I can beat those guys. They're also, you know, scratch plus handicap type golfers. So maybe we'll do some content with those guys. We could see if they want to be in some videos. But yeah, anytime you've got a tee time coming up already that you know about, that's a good thing to have looking forward to. Oh boy, our mat is starting to say no more. Look at that, we're gonna have to find a new spot to hit off of. Well, is this golf for dummies? Asking for a friend. Yeah, it could be something like that. 3 jags are my kryptonite. Yeah, it's so frustrating, right? How long should a beginner practice daily? Well, I think that's really up to you, Zach. You know, however much time you have, you know, where you can practice, right? You know, maybe 30 minutes a day is 2-1 Panthers, start of 2. Half the ball over the driver head is what I've heard. Yeah, that's exactly right. Thanks, Sebastian. Appreciate you helping out Michael in the chat there. That's very cool. Randy says, how come I can't hit my 3-wood off the fairway? Good question. So, Randy, what you got to remember is that 3-wood, it's got plenty of loft on it. It's got probably 15, 16 degrees of loft on it. So you don't have to help it up off the fairway, right? I'm going to grab a wood here, right? And what I want you to work on when you're practicing these shots, you know, practicing your 3-wood on the range, hitting it off the turf, right? You don't have to get that ball too far forward, right? Just slightly forward of center. And then what I want you to work on, right, is just making a nice, really balanced, smooth swing, right? If nothing else, your objective when you're hitting this shot should be to have a nice kind of balanced follow through, right? Because it's so important that we, you know, stay balanced and we deliver a good strike on the ball. And don't be afraid to, you know, you can almost hit it like an iron a little bit, right? You don't need to help it up, but you can, you know, really I want you to stay balanced, stay down and through it with your chest. And again, it's just a nice, smooth kind of swing, right? You know, I don't love golf cliches, but like, let the club do the work is a good one for you're trying to hit a 3-wood off the deck, right? You know, remember, they put loft on the club for a reason. 3-1 Panthers, come on. Steve says, I'm flushing my 60-7 iron pretty well, but 4, 5, and 6 I'm struggling. Not sure if the swing should be different. So it's not so much that the swing is different as, remember, when these clubs get longer, right? This is a 9 iron, and I'll grab a 4 iron, right? This longer 4 iron sits much flatter, right? Has a flatter lie angle. The arc it swings around our body is going to be flatter, right? So that's just, the reality of the clubs. And what it sounds like is generally when we hear about this, the short irons are okay, but then the longer irons get really tough, right? If your swing is a little bit steep, right, or slightly over the top some, your takeaway might be a little bit inside, and then you're just trying to get back to the ball, so you loop it over, right? Well, you can get away with that or adjust to that much more easily with a shorter club, and the fact that it's more upright will help you, right? But when we have less loft and a longer club, right, that steeper swing, it's going to be, and a flatter club, I should have said, it's going to be that much, harder to make those adjustments to get a good strike on the ball, right? So what I would have you practice is try to feel like, with a nice smooth action, especially with these longer clubs, right? You got to let that energy shift, right? Give it time, right, to really smooth out. But try hitting some of these where you keep the club head, that takeaway nice and wide, right? Give yourself plenty of space to let that club get in here to hit it. And you want to work on hitting it from the inside, right? A good drill would be to grab a head cover or, an old box of golf balls, something like that, right? But grab a head cover, drop it down just, kind of outside and to the right of where your golf ball will be, right? So something like this. And if you do make that steep swing, right, where you get inside and then you come over it this way, your path to the ball is going to be blocked, right? You won't be able to get to the ball. So this will force you to make a shallower swing, right, where you approach it from the inside just in order to hit the ball at all. So give that drill a try with those, those longer irons. And remember that they do need some speed. So if you're a beginner player and you haven't, developed your swing speed to its maximum potential yet, just remember that it will be more difficult to hit those longer clubs, those 4 and 5 irons. Hit my first 330-yard drive today thanks to what? Matt says, key to consistent ball striking. Feel like I'm good on the mat, but on the course, it's just not there. Sick content. Keep it up. Oh, I appreciate that, Matt. Thanks very much, my dude. If you guys are enjoying the stream like Matt and you want to like and subscribe, that would be awesome. Right? So here's my drill for you, Matt. If you feel like you're getting, some false feedback from the mat, which definitely can happen, right? Grab some of this blue painter's tape, or you could also use a towel or an old glove, right? But what you're going to do is set this down right behind your golf ball when you're practicing, right? Such that when I make a good strike, right? Sometimes what can happen is if you feel like you're hitting it okay on the mats, but on the range, or when you actually get on the golf course, you start hitting behind it, right? Sometimes what can happen is if you were hitting it heavy, the club will bounce off the turf and into the ball and kind of simulate a good strike, right? So this tape will tell us if we hit the club into the mat before the ball, right? Because if I do that, it's gonna come up, it's gonna stick to my club or go flying through the air, right? And what I want to work on is controlling the low point, right, such that I can hit the ball first and then hit the grass or the mat, right? And if I do it properly, I won't hit that tape at all, right? Something like that, where I just hit it, really nice strike on the ball, and that tape doesn't move an inch. So that can be a good drill to try. 3-2, okay. Oh, thanks to your advice on shifting weight. Gustavo, very cool, my dude. 330 yards is no joke. That's a long drive. And I'm glad that something you learned here could be helpful. That's very cool. Thank you very much for coming back to share. Bro, think he is Bryson. Nah, jokes, this is a great drill. Thanks, Jackson. Yeah, well, I will say, Bryson's endorsement of this product and sharing some of those drills with us, I mean, that's why he's the best, right? Man of the people. I mean, has anybody shifted their likability factor more than that guy? I mean, I personally, I wasn't a huge fan of Bryson 4 or 5 years ago, but he really did a great job of just being like, hey, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to, Start doing YouTube. You know, share some of the behind the scenes stuff. Like, that guy could have his own tour, right? He's got 2 million YouTube subscribers. He doesn't need the PJ Tour. He doesn't need to live golf, right? He could just do YouTube and have a great time, right? Obviously, he doesn't want to do that, but I have a ton of respect for, you know, the platform he's built. He seems like a pretty genuine guy from what I can tell. I'd love to meet him. I'd love to play golf with him. That'd be super cool. Handicap's usually between +1 and 1. So, like, you know, in the 70s usually. Are you the one with the videos where you hit the colored target tiles on the range? No, I don't think so. Antonio says, what's the main reason in your opinion people hit it fat? Lack of weight shifting. Exactly, Antonio. You nailed it, right? So let's just do a basic example, right? I think it's funny. One of my most liked contribution to YouTube so far is a comment on a golf channel like mini mart video that has like 10,000 likes on it, and it was just one of those, you know, viral shorts, right? And he's just showing a little toy swinging, right? And imagine you make a backswing and you lean back, right? And you just swing down. You're gonna hit the ground first. It's honestly a great demonstration, right? So look up the mini mart video if you haven't seen it. But I'll demonstrate it here anyway, right? So that's the, you know, if you don't shift your weight, that club's going to hit behind the ball. If you make no weight shift, right, you can hit the ball, but not a lot of forward shaft lean, right? You're not going to hit the ball very far. You know, it might be kind of scoopy, right? But if you make a backswing and then you shift your weight forward, boom, I can really deliver some speed onto the back of that ball. So, yeah, if you're hitting it fat, right, that means your low point is too far back. And you can practice this without even hitting a ball, right? This was really helpful for me. Just make a backswing and then practice that weight shift, right? Getting the weight from the big toe, right? You can practice lifting up your heel some. I still do it in my swing, right? And just practice that weight shift, right? From the backswing, boom. That's how we start our downswing. It's there, and then the rest of everything else follows. So give that a try. Try shifting your weight like that. I have top comment on TaylorMade's video introducing the white stripe ball. That's awesome. Have you ever considered giving lessons? I have. I tried offering lessons on Skillest for a few weeks, but I think there's something about, like, you know, they were coming after people's amateur status for giving lessons, and I still wanted to play in tournaments. But if you really want a lesson from me, send me an email and we'll figure it out, right? I've had a lot of success helping people with online lessons, you know, or like using video and pretty simple stuff. So if you feel really compelled, like, hey, I think John Young, because of his live stream, is somebody who can help me with my golf game, and I want to, you know, find a way to get a lesson, just send me an email. We'll figure it out. Top 5 American and international courses. Well, I would need a list in front of me because I'm not somebody who can think about this, you know, like off the top of my head. Like, you'd be like, well, what about this course? I'd be like, oh, of course that one should be in there, right? Pebble Beach, because I haven't played it. Pine Valley probably has got to be up there. Haven't played that one either. Augusta, haven't played it. I don't know. Butler might be in my top 5, only because I have played there, and it's a sick club. Former home of the Western Open. Internationally, I mean, St. Andrews. Haven't played golf there, but I have walked the course. Royal County Down, probably. There's so many good ones, guys. I mean, I have played the Nova Scotia courses, Cabot Cliffs and Cabot Links. Those are sick. I've heard Banff is unbelievable. I haven't played that one. Any tournament videos coming? Maybe. Maybe. No glove is way better than a glove. I think it's really personal preference, but I do respect the guys that go no glove. Grand Slam, what do I do with the wrist during takeaway, top of backswing? How do I release without flicking through contact and pull hooking? Good question, right? So the question is like, what do the hands and the wrists do in the swing, right? So you definitely do need some release at the bottom, right? But if you're really flipping it and getting too much right hand in there, then the drill I would have you do, right? And this is going to answer your question too about like, well, what do the hands and arms do? Make some swings with just your lead hand, right? So if you're a right-handed player, your left hand on the club, put your feet together, get that club out in front of you a little. You're going to swing the club back and take a step forward and then swing down with just your lead arm, right? And this will really unlock a lot of those feels that you need, right? And imagine you were trying to hit a golf ball with just this swing, right? So you'll swing back, your body will turn, and then you'll release it, right? But you would maintain some of that angle, right? That club kind of whips down, and I'm maintaining this angle, right? That's what lag is. That's how we deal off the club, right, and really deliver speed. It's this angle between the club and our wrist, right? So when you make these lead arm swings, notice how the weight, as you swing that club back, the weight of it is just naturally going to hinge your wrist, right? And then that's what we're trying to maintain and then release at the bottom, right? So if you wouldn't ever, you'll notice, right, if you're saying, hey, I'm really casting it, I'm flipping it, well, when you do this drill, you would never do that to generate speed, right? You would never throw the club this way with like the back of your wrist. It doesn't make sense. Your body wouldn't like naturally want to do that, right? So that is a really, really good drill to start developing those feels for how you want your body and the club to work together, right? And then your right arm is mostly just along for the ride and to add a bit of speed at the bottom. What do you do with your front foot after you hit it? What do you do with your front foot? It's a good question. I try to just be pretty balanced, right, and hold my spot. I try to release my toes a little bit, right, to feel like I'm really pivoting around this left leg, right? And I like hitting practice shots where I push my toes up into the top of my shoe, right? So I'm almost just kind of standing on my heels, and then hit shots that way, and it will really force you to pay attention to what your body and your legs are doing in order to still, hit the ball and make good contact. Can help with early extension too, right? Because if you get, if your toes are up off the ground almost, right, it's going to be much harder to early extend and get this way, right? So it can be a really good way to try to feel, boom, pushing away, right? I can't keep my front foot on the ground after I make contact with a driver. I think that's pretty normal, especially if you're swinging at high speed, right? Because, we make a big backswing and then we push off the ground and then we hit, right? The only thing I would tell you, Nip Sauce, if you feel like it's, negatively impacting your balance or something, right? Well, then you just go back to what I always say about changing technique, right? Which is do it at a slow speed where you can accomplish the goal, right? Which for you might be just keeping that front foot on the ground or something closer to it and slowing down until you can produce that, right? But that's only if it's, it's something you're worried about, that you want it to change. But tons of good questions, guys. We're coming up on 2 hours on the stream. Have I ever played any courses in Florida? Yes, I played Stream Song and Cabot recently, the end of last year. Played a little bit on the east coast of Florida. But could definitely play more. I mean, there's tons of good golf. Not in person, Liam, but we've done it, virtually. Like, we send videos and then, we draw some lines. We look at some other, good golf swings, right? Flybug, how do you fire your hips? Well, the hips are really what drive the whole swing, right? So, spend some time learning, like, how do I coil my lower body, right? Really, push. Imagine there's, you had to push your left foot into the ground in order to move your right hip back, right? That's the backswing, right? Imagine you were like starting a lawnmower, right? Boom! You got to really get some energy from the ground up that way, right? And then the downswing is just the uncoil. So the firing of the hips, right, is more of a release of the coil that you've already created, right? So spend some time just trying to isolate that movement away from hitting golf balls, not at high speed. So give that a try. Sebastian asks, what would make you switch off the driver for a wood or iron on a usually drivable hole? If I was really hitting it poorly and I felt like hitting the driver might bring in, you know, like a bogey or a double. Like I say, I was really hitting it poorly and I was like, hey, I just got to get it in play. Maybe I would not hit driver, but most of the time, I mean, driver's my favorite club. I'm probably going to hit driver on a drivable hole if you tell me I can drive it on the green. Wolf Creek and Cananassis are incredible if you go to Alberta. I would love to go up there. My wife and I travel quite a bit whenever we can. So I'd love to find a way up there and to play some golf. Chris asks, how do you adjust your distance for, say, 160 in the rough, playing with the ball well above your feet? This is a good question, Chris. So this is where it becomes important, and a lot of this is through practice. You know, there are some general rules of thumb, but a lot of it's just practice. You know, reading the lie that you have as well, you know, and trying to predict how it's going to come out, right? And what I mean by that is, as you become a better player, you'll be able to identify, and I should say, as your swing speed increases, or if you already have high speed, right, this becomes more relevant. But at higher speeds, you have to learn to read the lie to understand, okay, this one might come out hot. And by that we mean, when you hit a flyer, if you make good contact out of a hot lie in the rough, the ball is going to come out with not a lot of spin. It's going to fly further through the air, right? So if you told me I had a hot lie and it was a little above my feet and I'm coming out of the rough, I might be hitting like a pitching wedge, right? That's normally a 145 club, because I've read the lie and determined like, oh, it's going to come out fast. I don't want to hit my normal, you know, 160 club, which might be, you know, 9 or 8 iron, depending. It's kind of in between for me. So that's the hot one, right? As opposed to, if you're like, oh, it's really sitting down, I don't think it's going to come out, you might have to hit 7 iron to get it to go 160, right? So that's where, you know, judging the lie and trying to, you know, through practice, understand what's going to happen to the ball flight when it's coming out of rough. That's how I would approach it, right? Because the answer isn't just like, well, hit one more club. You know, it does depend on the lie. All right, guys, probably got time for a few more questions before we wrap it up for the night. But if you guys are enjoying the stream, you want to hit like and subscribe, I would be super appreciative. It does help us try to grow this platform. Still just a few months on YouTube. I'm trying to remind myself of that. You know, I'm still learning, trying to get better at this. I think I'm better than when I first started, at least at, you know, articulating some helpful drills and swing thoughts. I know my own game has benefited from the engagement, right? Doing these live streams, making videos, you know. Like when there's days, today I'll share, you know, I did a live stream, went to the range earlier, did my, you know, my Pels Tutor Challenge. If you haven't seen those videos, check them out. They're not particularly interesting other than, you know, I'm trying to create some accountability for myself to be like, no, you just have to do this every day for 30 days, post it, and, you know, force yourself to get better that way, right? So that's just one example, but my point was, I'm seeing the benefits, right? I'm, you know, more committed to my game. I'm practicing more because you guys show up for the live streams and ask good questions, and, you know, so it's all just kind of this nice upcycle of benefits, right? You know, I feel more engaged with my game. I make more content. There's more engagement, right? It's all this nice kind of circle. So really appreciate it for all the support, guys. First time seeing it, but I assure you the stream is perfect with real good info. I don't know about perfect, but I appreciate the really nice comment, Sebastian. That's very nice of you. DJ, what's your go-to beer on the course? Athletic or some sort of NA beer? I have been alcohol-free for a little more than 4 years now. So if you've been following the channel for a while, you've probably seen some content about that. But yeah, I've not consumed alcohol for like a little more than 1,500 days, I think. Hit 4 years back in March of this year. And I have no intentions of going back or starting to drink again. I just, I'm a really happy, satisfied person without alcohol in my life. But of course, as I used to do, I still enjoy a nice cold beer on the golf course, which is great that there are non-alcoholic options now that are pretty prevalent. Most golf courses have some sort of NA option, which even if you do drink, right, it's nice to mix in sometimes to say, like my brother has told me that he feels a lot better. He'll go out and still drinks, but once in a while, every third drink, right, he'll mix in an NA one. And, just incrementally less drinking, still will make you feel better. So, yeah, that's my story with the drinking. So, your hips are so incredibly wrong, dude. All right, Shelly, thanks for your thoughts. Would you recommend putting ball close to my front foot when hitting driver? I wouldn't get it all the way up there, but definitely forward of center for sure. How can I hit higher and farther drives? So, Benjamin, hi to you as well. Good question. If there's two ways to hit the ball further, right? You can improve your launch conditions, right? That means launch it higher with less spin at the same club head speed, right? Or you can increase your club head speed, right? And that's, pretty straightforward. You can, lift weights or train your swing, just do a whole bunch of speed training to increase how fast you can swing, right? But other than that, right, say you didn't want to, invest in increasing your club head speed right away. Well, you could try taking the ball up a little bit higher, right? Learn how to have a positive angle of attack and impact, right? So, where your right shoulder is lower than your left, and you're really, like Rory McIlroy, right? Really swinging low to high, sending that ball up into the air, right? And then hit the center of the club face, right? That's the best way to optimize, your energy transfer into the ball, to optimize your launch conditions. So those are your two choices. You can hit it more solidly and higher and better, or, swing it faster. Am I learning on hard mode using clubs from the 80s and 90s? Yeah, 100%, dude. 100%. The golf ball definitely is going to make it a lot easier than using a golf ball from the 80s. Mario asks, how can I improve my rotation? I have a good swing in my opinion, but the ball always goes straight right. I notice it is an open face, but also the impact of my hip is pretty open. Yeah, so this could be a mismatch, right, between the amount of rotation you have and how fast you can close the face. Benjamin says, I love your streams. You're helping so much. Oh, that's awesome. Are you using a PC to run your stream? No, so I have a laptop that I see the chat on and I, see myself, which takes a long time to get used to. I still do not enjoy that part, right? Or even, watching videos back and hearing my own voice, all that kind of stuff that I think resonates with most people. And then I just have my phone set up on a tripod right next to it, and that's plugged in. And so that way I can see the chat, and then you guys have a good view of what's going on here as we hit into the net. So that's the setup. I'll tell you guys, insider secret, if you want to start making content, you don't need fancy equipment, right? Everything that you've seen on my channel, all the hundreds of videos, all the live streams, all of that stuff has been filmed on a phone, and 99% of it has been edited on a phone. Right, there's an app called Power Director that I use to edit the videos. It's pretty straightforward. I invested in like a tripod and one of these like monopod things. This is great for just sticking in the ground out on the golf course. Right, you don't have to worry about it being on a weird lie because it's on a tripod, needs kind of a flat surface, right? And then there's just a magnet that holds the phone, and you're off and running. Seriously, I post all the videos from my phone. I do all the editing on my phone. Someday I'd love to invest in equipment and cameras, and if this venture ever starts to produce income, then maybe we could invest in some of that stuff. But you can you can certainly get started with just a camera phone. How do you know if you were setting up correctly? Lots of practice, Mario, right? You can definitely practice, you know, your alignment, right? So using something like these alignment sticks can be great, where you would practice saying, okay, this is my target line, you know, parallel to, you know, that's where my target is. And then imagine your feet, right? You want to create almost like a train track, you know, a nice parallel situation so that you're set up squarely to that line, right? So what I would do is just practice getting in here. And then you can drop your club down where your feet are, right? And what you want to see, you know, mine's even fractionally open there that one time I set up to it, right? You want to see this nice parallel kind of train track, right? If you were consistently setting up, say you're setting up too far to the right, really closed, right? And you drop that club down, well, you see, boom, it's pointed right of my target line over that way. So you can just practice, right? A checkpoint that I really like, that I use in my game, is when I feel like I'm setting up squarely, right, where my feet are nice and square to that line, to me, it feels like my shoulders are pointed at about 10 o'clock, right? If 12 o'clock is my target line, my shoulders feel like they're pointed at, like, you know, 10, 10:30, right? And that, for me, is just a checkpoint to know, right? My tendency is to get to this way, right? And then I'm kind of looking over my left shoulder, and I start swinging back this way to try and get it back to the hole. So that can be a really good one. All right, guys, I'm going to hit one more shot here. But it's awesome to hear that the streams have been beneficial. You know, I had one guy in here who was like, you know, talking about your experience with drinking and stuff has helped me, you know, to not drink, and I was having a problem with it. So that was really cool. But obviously, you know, just as cool to hear people come back and say, hey, I tried that drill and it was really helpful and it helped my game. That's what we're trying to do here, right? Is share some knowledge, whether that's about the golf and the golf swing. But to be honest, you know, the way I've talked about it before is golf is kind of a container, right? Where I can bring, you know, my skill and my knowledge and share that with people, and that's great. But also, you know, some of my experience, whether that's, you know, struggling with your mental health and going to therapy. I'm actually going to therapy again soon, which I'm pretty excited about, and trying to destigmatize some of these things. You know, sharing my experience with an alcohol addiction, and how I, you know, overcame that. You know, what it's like on the other side. So the channel is going to be mostly about golf, right? We're going to keep doing streams and sharing tips and helping people, right? But not to be lost in that is, you know, what I'm most grateful for is that opportunity to share some of that experience. Oh, that was hit so good. Gosh, it just never gets old. Every time I tell myself, like, one more. Well, then you just flush it, and you're like, man, I want to hit another one. And it's not like at the range where you can run out of balls, right? The net's right there. So I could, you know, much to my wife's chagrin, I could stay out here all night and hit balls. Oh, man. Whoa. You know it's been a good stream, guys, when the laptop has fully died, so I think we're still live, but just with not a good way to see the chat. All right. Is it worth regripping my clubs? Yes. How beneficial has recording your swing been for improving your game? I think it has definitely helped DJ just seeing it more, right? Like I'm looking at my swing all the time on video. So I can't help but notice when I'm like, oh, that wasn't my favorite move there. One day you should teach us how to juggle the golf ball with the clubs, or at least pick it up. After all, important questions, of course. Yeah, of course, Gustavo. Oh, we can do that one right now, actually. That's 2 shots and 3. LOL, yeah, I put the pizza in the oven. Okay, Nate. Carlos says, I do golf content as well, but I've been considering doing a live stream. Very cool. All right, guys, so I am... Sanders asks, how do I fix my bad slice? First time watching, do you have a certain schedule so I can catch another? See, everybody's been asking this, which is awesome, right? I love that people are like, hey, when, I want to come back and see more. It's just hard to schedule them. I'm trying to mostly sneak away at the end of the day to come in here and hit balls. But I will try to schedule them in advance in the future. Usually it's going to be in the evenings, Eastern time. Between like 4 and 8 starting usually, right? This is kind of late. So that'll be kind of what the schedule looks like. But no, I'd love to try and find a way to do it every day. Just again, given the amount of support and how often people are saying like, hey, when are you doing this again? When's the next stream? How can I find more? But we're going to keep posting shorts and videos too, guys. So don't feel like, it only has to be the live stream stuff. Which is, cool about a platform like YouTube. All right, so you want to learn, this is the real, like if you stuck around this long on the stream, this is when you get the actual, like the cool tips, right? So you want to start looking like a good golfer. You just learn how to do this, right? Scoop up the ball, bounce it a little, maybe you roll it around a little, right? So number one, grab your most lofted wedge, right? I have a 60 degree in my hand. These are the important tips that people come for, right? And the motion that we're going to practice, right, is this scooping one, right? Kind of like a reverse J, right? So we just practice turning the club over, right? And then scooping it, almost like a U, right? So this is the move you're going to make. And then you're just going to make it smaller and right under the ball, right? Boom. And just kind of scoop it up. Just like that. Just right onto the club. No big deal, right? And all you're doing is, kind of pushing into the ground, getting that club under the ball, right? And then to juggle, all you're going to do is, hold the club, maintain the face angle, right? Such that when the ball hits it, it's just going to bounce straight up in the air, right? And you can do big bounces, you can do little bounces if you don't drop the ball. You can fry up some eggs. You can start learning, some like little through the legs, behind the back, all that kind of stuff. Chad, we at 4 LMAO. McJesus with that toe drag. Did he score? Cutie said, hola, hey. Or DJ, are you saying that scooping up the ball is like the toe drag? Oh, that wasn't good. Just a tiny bit low on the face. A little better. All right, one more good swing, and then we're going to call it a night. Yeah, something like that. All right, guys, like I always say, thank you very much for being here. Very appreciative of all the support, all the new subscribers, all the likes on the stream. One more chance, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. Does help us out trying to grow the platform. So thank you again. We'll do this again soon. Come back for another time. We'll see you next time.